Good afternoon, 8th grade Bobcats. Mr. Flato here. Welcome back to another great week at the Helena Middle School. On today's Bob lesson, I think it's probably good timing with all the craziness going on the last week in the world, which I know filters down into your guys' world. To show this Bob lesson, I did with Minnesota Teacher of the Year, Abdul Wright last year. I know he came and spoke to our school, talking about diversity, talking about the world we live in, talking about work ethic, grit, overcoming obstacles in life. It's a little lengthy, so I'm going to get rocking and rolling on this. Make it a great week. Hello, HMS Bobcats. Mr. Flato here. Another new Bob lesson for you today. I have a very special guest here today, Mr. A.B. Wright, my man.
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate you doing this with me today.
Of course.
It's probably been, we're going to record this, it'll been about a week since you spoke to our student body here coming up. And AB is Minnesota Teacher of the Year, quite the distinguished educator. I've had the pleasure of getting to know here the last 24 hours or so, and at all the things I think I'd like to talk to you about. I mean, I could just sit here and pick your brain all day long, but given the difference in our backgrounds and some things that I found we have in common, maybe talking about diversity, acceptance, and how maybe some of our Bobcats can implement some of that into their daily lives. It's crazy. 2017 is kind of a divisive time. I don't want to go political, but on a macro level with different countries almost at war with one another, maybe on a more of a micro level, even down to within the United States or people not getting along within our schools. Why is diversity so important to you, do you think?
I think first, thank y'all for having me. Thank
Absolutely.
you for having me.
Absolutely.
I think first I want to kind of explore the term diversity.
Sure.
I think in my mind, diversity is just variance.
Sure.
It's variance. And I think that diversity is important because most importantly, you get different perspectives. You get different understanding of where people may have come from, some of the things they value, some of the things that they prioritize, interests. And I think you see the importance of diversity so that we don't all walk around with this sense of sameness.
Absolutely.
That in order for me to be valuable, I need to fit into a certain particular box. And I think that if we look at it, if we just look at race in terms of diversity, one thing we don't want is a society in which we view let's just be real. We view white people who come from Montana a certain way, or people from Montana who may view a black person like me a particular way. I think that if we just start with that, we see that on the surface you see difference, but if you look and can appreciate someone's differences, you can see that you have similarities too. Like
Absolutely.
me and you, we realize we both play ball. We both have a sense of service and coming back and living in our communities and doing what's best for our babies. I think that we have similar values.
Absolutely.
And I think that if we look at our young people, we'll see that our young people have similar values. And they don't all dress the same. They don't all look the same. They don't all come from the same place.
Absolutely.
Some may come from money. Some may not. Some may have a darker skin color. Some may not. But it don't mean that any individual within that is any less valuable. And
Absolutely.
I think that the more we explore diversity, the more we explore variance, the more we are willing to appreciate and understand someone for their differences, the better off we'll be, because we'll see that no two people are alike, and there's no such thing as normal. There's no such thing as weird. There's just people.
Unique people. One of the things I really promote to middle schoolers in our school, love my school, we're very diverse for Helena, Montana. Maybe coming from out of state, you wouldn't get that. But when I think of diversity, I think about walking around to 8th grade recess and looking at like roughly 12 different girl friendship groups, or maybe 8 to 10 different boy friendship groups, and how each one of those friendship groups, they have their own little style, they have their own sense of humor. I have my own way of interacting with them, and diversity on a level like that. You know, I picked you up, we went down to Macy's and we started talking. Way different backgrounds, me and you. I know you grew up in Chicago, probably a little tougher upbringing than I did, with a couple parents that had my needs met, but within 5 minutes of talking, we both played college hoops. We both like playing fantasy football. We both listen to R&B, some hip-hop, even some EDM, you said. And then we're both educators that love kids, and I would have never known that had I not got that opportunity. If I would have saw you on the street and just said, he looks different from me, I'm not gonna talk to him. I try to be more of an open person than that anyways. I never would have known that.
Exactly. And I think, it's a sense, there's two terms, right? There's two ways you can look at it. It's color blindness, but that doesn't take into account our differences. But then there's color braveness, and it's like, okay, I see your color, but I'm willing to appreciate you as a person and appreciate your circumstance and the differences in our situation, while still understanding that underneath it all, we're human beings and we're people, and there's a chance for us to connect and to learn from one another. And I think that that's the most beautiful thing about, you know, the human person in general, is this whole idea of it's about depth of character, depth of person, depth of, you know, interests, depth of values. And I think the more we go beneath, the richer our relationships will be, the richer we'll be as people.
Absolutely. I think about, I tell kids all the time, you don't have to like everybody in life. You're going to naturally fit into a certain subgroup, friendship group. I'm sure you see it at your 8th grade, certain friendship subgroups, and that's good. That's a natural part. We don't have enough time in life to expend energy on friendships with 100 or 150 different friends. It's just impossible. So it's a natural thing that happens when we subgroup and we start hanging out with people that are like-minded, have similar values, have similar interests. Maybe dress the same, act the same. So that's a natural thing. I think where we got to get better as human beings, as we got to get better as young people, old people, 29-year-olds, 36-year-olds, is accepting that that group of people over there, even though they don't dress like me, they don't act like me, they're still human beings too, and I'm going to let them be. I'm going to let them be who they're going to be, and I'm going to respect them for being unique individuals. And I think I tell kids all the time, you're not going to like everybody. Not everybody likes Mr. Flato. Not everybody probably likes Mr. Wright. But I hope that we shoot for respecting everybody and getting respect from everybody. I know that's one of our goals at HMS.
Exactly, because the more you feel respected as an individual, the more willing you are to be brave and to communicate and to be open and honest and vulnerable. I think, and especially for y'all, like 8th graders, like y'all are at a crucial time where you're starting to say, you know what, people who I was friends with in the 4th or 5th or 6th grade, like those numbers are going down, you know? So at the end of the day, it becomes about quality of friendships. I only want people around me that I know truly value me and that I truly value, but it doesn't mean that my respect for anybody decreases. And I think that that's important. It's about respect, it's about quality, it's about compassion, it's about taking the time to try to be understanding.
Absolutely. I talk so much about how friendships, it'd be crazy to hear your take on North Minneapolis. Friendships start evolving and they start changing. Friendship circles about 8th grade and into your freshman year, and I tell kids all the time, your peer relationships and the circle you run with these next 5 years probably going to be the biggest decision you make because of peer pressure and who you chose to spend your time with, and making sure that you have aligned interests but really aligned goals and where you want to go in life.
I agree 1,000%. I think, and I'd even say beyond this 5 years, like even the circle of people you keep around, you got people around you that push you. And I think that that's important for our young people to understand, is that we're always evaluating the quality of people that we have around us, you know, regardless of age. And I think that they can connect with that. And I think the people who listening to this can connect with that. Like, do I have great people around me? Do I have a great support system? But also, you got to look at yourself first. Am I doing everything to the best of my ability to convey respect? Am I doing everything to the best of my ability to convey courage, to convey compassion, to convey whatever it takes to be a good, decent human being? And I think that if we just focus first on ourselves and everything we can do to be a better person, to make a positive difference, then it becomes easier for the people around us. Because, hey, that might be tough because in this particular household, we don't necessarily celebrate differences or value those. But if they come to school and they see people who do those things and they respect those people and they see those people being courageous, it makes it easier for them to be courageous.
Leading by example.
Exactly.
And hopefully the friendship circle that you live in is pushing you to be a better person.
Exactly.
I know some of my educator friends, Mr. Elder, the Franzens, Mr. Zape, I mean, I could go on and on. Like, we're always pushing each other to be better people, be better educators. And you hit on something really important. So many issues of kids that come down to, in my office, it always comes down to things you can control versus things you can't control. So many kids struggle with, I can't control other people, and that's where they really struggle with. And I always tell them, you can only control you. And so if you're controlling you and you're representing yourself in a respectful, accepting manner to diversity and to others, hopefully leading by example, but at the end of the day, that's all you can really do.
Exactly. It is all you can really do at the end of the day. But you still got to understand that we're not in a perfect world. Like, there are people who say, you know, bad things all the time, whether it's about people who come from poverty, whether it's about people who struggle with their sexuality, whether it's people who struggle with their identity, whether it's people who struggle with their race. You see it, but the question you got to ask yourself: do I want to continue to be a part of that problem, or do I want to do what I know it brings about great solutions and positive solutions? And for me, that's leading with love, and that's hard. Like, it's easy to say, oh, go love everybody else, and then you ended up being hurt in return.
Yeah.
But you got to understand that, like, you are leading with love because that's the type of person you are or you're striving to be.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, you're not looking for something in return. You're not leading with love so that somebody else can return that same sense of love. You're doing it because you know it's the right thing to do. So you're not expecting it in return. And that's what makes it unconditional. And I think the more we have an unconditional sense of living, an unconditional sense of respect, unconditional sense of compassion, unconditional sense of love, the better off we'll be, because we're not giving it and expecting something in return. We're giving it because we know that that's the right thing. That's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Everybody doing their part.
Exactly.
Correct.
Exactly.
Last piece of advice, AB, for our students, just anything that's on your mind, anything that's on your heart, whether it's wrapped around diversity, acceptance of one another or not, just some final closing thoughts.
I think my final closing thoughts to all of the young kings and queens that's listening to this is accept yourself. Like, you're not perfect. You don't got to be perfect. The people who you look up to not perfect. No single individual in this world is perfect. So don't expect perfection from yourself. The one thing I want you to do is, one, accept yourself and accept that you have to allow yourself time to grow. And I think that becomes things that'll carry you through life. Self-acceptance, realization of growth, and just striving every day to be better. And if you do those things, then you win in that life.
Wow, that's amazing. My man, I really appreciate it. I wish we could just sit here and talk for hours, pick your brain, throw thoughts off one another. We're going to do a little bit maybe tomorrow. But Bobcats, you're hearing it right here from Minnesota Teacher of the Year, somebody that lives in a completely different world, but not that different, as we found out today. So many of the universals of just being a human being, being in education, being an 11 to 14-year-old, things remain, whether you're on the West Coast, East Coast, have not, color your skin, gender identity, gender preference, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Be you, love one another. Appreciate it. Love each and every one of you. Again, AB, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right, that brings us to this week's Jellybean Question of the Week winners, who are Serenity Banks, Timothy Taylor, James Williams, Shaughnessy Shines, and Madison Weisgerber. The answer to last week's Jellybean Question of the Week was water, always running, and you cannot live without me, but I can live without you. This week's Jellybean Question of the Week: where can you find success before work? If you think you know, submit your answer to Bob Box no later than Friday. Tune in next week to see if you are a winner. All right, Bobcats, let's make it a great week. Last week of the first quarter, let's make sure we finish strong.